Standard Bank CEO Jacko Maree has pledged to give a tenth of his taxable income towards the funding of education for the underprivileged. And we've got him in studio with us right now to run us through some of the rationale and the thinking behind this decision. Thanks so much, Jacko, for joining us this afternoon. Well, let's start off there. What's prompted this decision to give 10% of your annual taxable income towards specifically black scholars and, this dedication towards education spend?
I think many business leaders have for a long time been giving generously and silently. And I just think with all the clamour that there has been about what is business doing and high pay and privilege and so forth, and the calls for various taxes and where the Warren Buffetts of South Africa and so on, I took the view that the time had come to say something, which is a bold move, and I don't want to embarrass other people who I know are doing more than I'm doing. But I think it was important, and education, we all know, is the cornerstone of everything, really, if you want to succeed.
So to what extent do you see this as an effective way of dealing with what is and what are very emotional issues around executive remuneration in the country at this stage?
Well, if you want to create jobs, and I think we all agree that the national priority is job creation, the only entities that really can create jobs in the long term are businesses, big businesses and small businesses. And my experience is that if you look at businesses that are successful, it is because of a relatively small number of people who make the difficult decisions, decide where to go to, execute them well. And those people we have to pay pretty well, not just the chief executive, but you've got to pay them properly, because otherwise they'll go and work somewhere else. So it is very much linked into creating jobs.
Absolutely. Let's take a look, and why I asked that question is because you touched on it earlier. Being mooted is this, taxation of executive pay of higher earners in general. Where do you draw the line? That's been the question. The New Growth part suggested people earning more than 500,000 a year take a pay freeze. What do you make of endeavours like that are happening in tandem with what you've put on the table?
Look, I believe in a market-driven economy. I think that will solve the issues of poverty and inequality in the long term. Of course, the market has to work in tandem with government, in concert with government. So that's critical as well. But I think any artificial caps that you put in are not going to work. It'll drive skills to the wrong place. So my view is that if you really are, as society believes that executives are too highly paid, then there should be a tax of some sort. That will have a whole bunch of other negative consequences, believe me. But I think that is sort of the least of all evils. I think trying to put in caps and so on is never going to work.
Well, one of the, the kind of debates that a tax on executive pay has stimulated has gotten a response from Desmond Tutu, in fact, highlighting that the problem with raising more tax from the wealthy is that the poor never, in most instances, get to see that money. It drains away into the cracks and pockets of the state. Do you think that we've got viable enough mechanisms in place to make sure that money is dedicated and flows through to the right places?
I think I'm the wrong person to ask that question. I'm a banker, I'm a businessman. The issues within any government about how well or badly they spend the money is always a subject for debate in any country. And I suppose going right back to the beginning, I think a lot of the initiatives that you're seeing from businessmen are focused on doing things that they believe passionately, and I believe passionately in education, and I know that the money that I contribute will definitely be used well.
So let's take a look at where you do have a say. I mean, how do you manage, and make sure that that fund flow is actually going to and getting committed to the right places in terms of what you're contributing?
No, I think that any person who has the ability to make a financial contribution is going to be concerned and involved, and hopefully because of that concern and involvement, there'll be a reasonable degree of certainty that the money is well used. I think it's just being close to what you're busy with. Clearly, when it's money's being administered by bureaucracies and so on, it's much harder to ensure that.
Of course, in this instance, we've got the money being dedicated to education specifically, where unemployment sits at 26%, skills much sought after, and better leaders at the end of the day being needed. What's your sense of the leadership models that young people can emulate and are inspired by in the country?
I think South Africa is full of of good young leaders. And I think because of our political past and the fact that we've had a number of almost miraculous things that have occurred in our country, I think when I talk to young people, you get hugely inspired. People that work for us in Standard Bank, these are people that have got, most people don't work for money. They work for a greater goal. But of course, at the same time, they expect to be properly paid. So I think it's about doing the right thing, adding value, making a difference, all of those things. That's really what I think drives, I don't know, the Steve Jobses as well.
Yeah. Absolutely. Having said what you have, how do you rate money as a motivator in terms of attracting the right skills?
I think it is a necessary but not sufficient condition is probably the right way to put it. In other words, if you want good young people to work for you rather than your competitor, or to stay in South Africa rather than go and look for opportunities elsewhere in the world, you've got to pay them a competitive pay level. I think that's the issue. Beyond that, whether they are excited about working for you or working in the country will depend on a whole bunch of other factors. So I think you have to deal with that. I don't think you can ask people to do it out of the goodness of their heart. Charity will not solve South Africa's issues. Creation of jobs by businesses will.
Absolutely. Well, let's leave it there, Jacko. Thanks so much for your time this afternoon. Of course, Jacko Maree is, of course, CEO of Standard Bank.